We'll see whether this works. I'm going to try to record what a few minutes on the river looks like. So just pulled out of the river camp about, I don't know, it's probably been 30 minutes or so. I'm going to kind of skirt the edge here a little bit. One of the things I'm finding is the wind is a pain. It's a little up today. So there's a little less wind when I'm running along the side, but the current's not as strong. This is kind of the pace. This is about all I've been able to handle since the first day probably. Gives me a chance to keep the boat moving slightly faster than the current, so I have steerage. Every once in a while I need a little burst of energy. If I lose control because of the wind or the current, or an obstruction pops up. And when I'm closer to shore, I'm able to scout for snacks, or if I see a place to pull ashore and harvest a few smilax or palmetto. It's always nice to be able to reach there. The current's pretty fast here. It looks like as I get downstream, there's a lot more of the ground nuts, the Apios americanus, hopnis, whatever you want to call it. And the sides of the river are coming up some, which just makes for these, I wouldn't call them cliffs, but I'm sure if the river level was lower, they would qualify as a small cliff of limestone, frequently with ferns and beautiful mosses growing out of them, basically showing us how the water table works. I'm going to try to spin through. Here's a little washout of some. I don't know if you'll be able to see it with the angle of the camera. Oh, there it is. But I'm finding as I get further downstream, way down south from Fargo, Georgia, where I started 60 miles ago, that there's a lot more of that ground nut. I haven't harvested any this morning. I did get some bull thistle and bull nettle this morning. There is a place where I'm learning to watch for the washed out areas in the embankment. I don't have a big old shovel, nor do I have the strength to dig a bunch of holes looking for stuff, but where there's washed out edges of the riverbank, I can find some almost exposed roots or exposed roots of edible things. So I found some of the carrot-like, the bull nettle, the one with the little white flowers on it that will sting the crap out of you. It does have an edible tuber further down. I'm going to roast that sucker up tonight. And I'm seeing a little bit more wildlife now. So seeing there's a lot more birds. You can hear them chirping in the background. Well, at least I can. And I'm seeing an occasional turtle along the embankment. So that bodes well that I might luck out and get some more protein tonight. And I've noticed a few people have put out a trot line. Somebody had mentioned that in the comments. And wish I had the rope to, I guess I do have the rope. I had the time to stop and put a rig like that together, but I might borrow a fish from a trot line if I happen to see one along the way towards the end of the evening, because I would not mind a little fish and ground nut stew. It sounds divine. I have noticed there's a lot more, I guess those are ducks, as I go along. Right before I pulled out last night, I saw a very dead and bloated duck on the side of the river, and I was tempted, because I'll tell you, every time I see one of those ducks fly by, I'm thinking roasting a duck over the fire. So I'm going to try to be smart. Although I'm not fasting, I'm certainly trying to get as much food in me as I can. The amounts of calories that's necessary to sustain this for about 8 hours is challenging. And in the past when I fasted, I've always been foolish in how I broke my fast. So I hope to Wednesday or Thursday break my fast a little kinder and gentler than I have in the past, and ease back into my food. Maybe just some fruit and vegetable stew, and slowly add more complex foods to digest as I go. I'm going to cut this off in a minute, but I will say it's been interesting, the few people I've seen along the way to say hi or good morning. The more I find I am challenged by humans. I seem more comfortable paddling down the river, connected and yet not. The small talk of humanity does challenge me. I met a gentleman, I think that was yesterday. I got out to get some snacks and climbed up the ridge, and I come out on the other side, and there's a gentleman there on a mountain bike who is on a 3-day bike camping journey, which was interesting. And I don't think we had been talking for 3 minutes when he started telling me about some woman he was chatting with online. Maybe that's why I don't have any men as friends, or at least not very many. That was a water snake for a second. I thought I saw more protein. I'm always challenged by the strange conversations we have, short-term or long-term. Sometimes I prefer talking to the animals or the trees. Well, what sounds like a river has fooled me for the first few days. I'm going to keep the tape running until we get past it. This current's really fast, and every time there's a tree down, it sounds like a roaring rapid. Well, we'll see how the connection is later, and I will post this when we can. Ooh.